Okay. So one of the things with inheritance is that you take whatever is common to all students, and we said that this is a simple case of inheritance. Later we will see how when we want to get into this role management, and you already have a sense of role management. If you open up your database, you'll see that when we created the database, let me disconnect. If you go to your database that was generated, you can see here that it's already set it up for role management. You can see there is ASP.NET roles, ASP.NET users, and how do you think these two are connected? Through the user roles there. So what type of association is there between user and roles? It's a many-to-many association. You can see it's a composite primary key. Each of these is an individual foreign key going to role and to user. And this is all built in when we generated using the entity framework. But one of the other important things to note here is ASP.NET users. If you look carefully at it, it's not just, it has a lot of attributes here. Okay. And what are the attributes? You have email, the password, and phone number, and so on. So what does that imply for us? So when we create our own users, like in this case, who are our potential users? The students. So these students that we created, so if you want their email addresses and phone, where do we find it? Should we create attributes here? We have to use this up here. So the question is, how would we connect a student, and maybe we have other types of users such as administrators or advisors. So where this ASP.NET user resides in the model, can anyone take a reasoned guess at this? Where do you think the user resides inside the model? Mike? It was something that came prior to us creating our own model classes. The identity model, if you go inside the identity model, if you scroll up, you'll see that there is this application user class, and the application user class is what corresponds to this ASP.NET user. So there are multiple layers. So I want to make sure that I first address the issue of inheritance, and then maybe tie it up with application user. I'm trying to see if there's any value. It probably it's better that what I was trying to do last class is more artificial, because I tried to introduce two classes, graduate student, undergraduate student. Maybe that's not such a, so let's see if, so what I'm going to do is, rather than create that, maybe we'll who are going to be our users? One is, as Adam pointed out, the students. Who else will use this application? Pardon? I didn't get you. Advisor. Okay. So we are going to have some advisors. Who else might use it? Yeah, the instructor or professor. So what we'll do is, instead of bringing in this artificial class called grad student, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm also going to get rid of undergrad student, because again, I just brought that in to try to demonstrate or explain okay. So the issue is, if I go back to my class diagram now, so I have my student class, and this student class inherits from, if I look at it from the MVC model, what does student class inherit from? It's going to be application user. So I'm going to represent this in this class diagram by adding in a class called okay. Now, some of the attributes of application user are what you see here: email, password, phone number, username. So these 1, 2, I think you can specify that the username can be the email, but we'll put these in 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are security settings that you can either enable or not. So we'll go with those 4 base attributes, which is email, password, username, and what's the 4th one? Phone number. Okay. Now, what would constitute the ID for application user? It will be the student ID, but it's going to be, it has its own ID. So this here it's just called ID. We have tried to prefix it. So for just to make it clearer here, I'll just say application user ID. Okay. Now, if we say that this student inherits from, so if I added in an association, it's an inheritance from application user to student. The other side, I also so there are some, all of these generic attributes. I want it to go to student, and I also want it to go to, which is the other class, the professor or instructor, whatever we want to call it. Now, these are common attributes that are shared, so I will just add an association. there are some other attributes that might also be common to the application, well, to both students and instructors. What would one of those be? What is not here that I would have to add in at the very least here?
Some sort of instructor ID?
Okay, we could put in instructor ID. Okay, instructor ID. What else would an instructor need? Okay, unless you want them to be totally anonymous, which I wouldn't mind at this point. But anyways, the issue is, so if I put instructor name in here, the issue is you might think of this as, well, every application user has a name, so you might want to migrate it here. If you do, there are some considerations. What are those things we have to be aware of? If I move the name up here, what will the result be for us? What's the implication? Yeah, when we were populating our student class and then the database, we basically went through, it's right here. So we could, so the issue is, can we do it through student, or do we need to do it through the parent class? So that's some issue that comes into play. So if we were to change this to this model, what's so when we are saying, well, student inherits from application user, how does that get implemented? How would it? So this is the big picture view of it. So how do you think it goes into the actual implementation in C#? So application user here, what's it saying? This is this class inside MVC. What's happening to this? That inherits from identity user because this is a part of the MVC authentication process. Now, what we are saying is our student is inheriting from the application user. So this is going to then become okay. So this has now some implications as to it's probably going to break our model now, and whatever is working. So hopefully, if you're making changes, you'll have to think through this. We have to decide: do we want the name to be moved? If you're moving it to the parent class, where would it go? It will become a attribute here or a property here under application user. So let's just practice. I'm trying to balance between practicing the object-oriented principle versus not entirely breaking our code. Yeah.
Property for students, instead of you using the this.student name, couldn't you basically refer back to the parent class in that property?
Yeah, we could say this dot So we just add in the last so we just add in last name and then just reference that property. Okay, we can do that. So let's see how that works. Adam?
I was just going to say one information I saw was when we added in the inheritance in the student class, it affected some of the things in the student tests as well. For example, I got like a error in my student test. I would have to use it.
In student test?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
It's asking for identity user to be referenced.
Student
Yeah, right
test.
there where you're trying to call it. Just use what they're saying and just add the reference page.
Okay. Okay, so you have to add a reference to the, what was that, the identity? Okay, so that's interesting. So this is the reference that added in. So, well, let's see if that's going to be a major problem. But that's one, as Adam pointed out, that's immediately one of the issues that you have to address. So if I move this, the username up to the identity model, so then it will become public. It's not username. I can't call it username. It should be like user full name. Is it? You want to separate it? User first and last name? No? Okay, I'll just say user full name. Public string user full name. Okay. So let's get set. Okay, so I'm having that set up in the parent class. I also can specify or find out what role the user is in. So that's the one other thing I want to specify here. Let's see. So one of the things I could specify is to see what role the user is in. Okay, and that's we can set. So let's see how we can do that. As far as the bigger picture is concerned, what else do I need? So the instructor name, do I need to specify it in the child as well? I'll remove it from here. So now the student name, I need to figure out how I get that. Should I just say, well, let me go into, so instead of saying, so now when I create a student, it won't be sufficient if I just give since this is, so when I create the student, I also want to use the base. and the base will be the application user, for which I need to provide when I create the application user object, I want to provide, there are some parameters that I absolutely have to enter. So which means over here I'll have to do this. So public application user. So I'm having an empty constructor, and then I'll have to set up application user with, there are some values that absolutely have to be provided, trying to figure out which values there are. You have to provide the username, you have to provide the email username, password, a security stamp. So these are going to be required. So I'll have to set up. Okay, so I'll set this up. This dot user full name equals. So where will this value come from? I'll have to set up a parameter saying user full name. Okay, email is my second string. Okay, where do you think these properties are coming from? You can see they are not defined here. Okay, so where is it coming from, these properties? Yeah, the identity user, because we are inheriting from there. Okay, so user full name, email, what else do we are going to need the phone number. So I'm going to have a string for phone number. You have to provide a security stamp, which we can generate, I think, using the way you generate it is from, I think it's pronounced GUID. Does anyone know what this expands to? If you obviously look at the IntelliSense, it tells you it's supposed to be a globally unique ID. So we want a security stamp that is going to be globally unique. So we just generate this as a string. So each time we create an application user, we are generating it with a security stamp. And we have to also provide a password. So we, how do we do this? Where's my password? Okay, one of the things I have to do for each of these objects is to use a password hasher. So the only way I can do it, I think, is to use a password hasher. And let's say I just use a full name. Okay, the reason I'm going through this is there are certain attributes you absolutely have to provide, otherwise it won't create the user. And so you need the security stamp email, and then you would need the username. So this dot username, I think we can set it to the same as the email. I think it should accept that. Okay. So these are the base requirement of the base class. So we have a constructor here that does that. So when we come to the student class, when I say it's using the base constructor, what's it going to require? Whatever the student name is, you need to pass it on to the parent, which means parent is the user full name. What else is it requiring? To do its work, it requires the email. And so when we create a student, we have to provide a string of email. So whatever we have right now obviously will fail if with this data as it exists. And what else do we need to provide? It's going to be a phone number. So phone number, so I need another string. Okay, why is this complaining? Use a full, well, okay, this is okay. The other thing is, what should we change in the student class? Something that won't be needed in the student class. Well, we won't need this student name, right? Because it's coming from the parent class. So which means we won't be assigning this over here. I'll get rid of this method that I was trying to use last class for inheritance. I'm going to get rid of that. And one of the things I have to do, if I'm trying to populate a student, if I'm trying to create a new student, what do I need to do? Whenever I'm creating a the child of a parent class, when I create the child, I also have to create whatever is needed by the parent. So when I say new student, the new student is not only a student object, but it's also a application user object. So which means that when I create this new student, I'll have to provide all these parameters. So student name followed by so for Michael Jordan, to make it easier, I'll just say Michael dot Jordan. I'll just use something like wvu.edu. Actually, if you want to do real password retrieval and changes, you might want to give one of your email addresses to just test it out for one of the users. And what else do we need to provide? Some phone number. Okay, so this is how you will create your student, so which means to avoid this from generating an error, I'll just I'll just very quickly add in okay, so we have our 3 students with the extra parameters. So again, going back to the big picture here, we have a constructor which constructs this application user object, right? So I'll put this constructor in application user, which takes in 3 parameters: email, password, and I think user full name. And this uses, so this student constructor is essentially using this application user. So when we create our instructor, we should also have an instructor what? We'll have to add in an instructor constructor, and if we are going to so we remove the student name from student credits earned. I don't know if we incorporated it or not. We didn't. At least I don't have it here. So what's unique to each student is just the student GPA. And what could you think of as something that's unique to instructor?
Pay grade.
What?
Pay grade.
Pay grade, or what do you think is the? Well, we could put that in, but what's probably relevant to a student registration system? The email. Where will the email be? It's over here. What? You could be interested in it, but as a student, what are you most likely to be interested in? Pardon? Courses they teach. The courses they teach is, if we put it in here, if they teach multiple courses, it's going to become a problem. So how would you indicate the courses they teach? Well, but will we have it as an attribute here? It's going to be what? This will be an association going to the courses that they teach. But but what else? Like one thing, at least to me, would be, well, again, if one wants to be anonymous, I guess you don't want to provide this, but an instructor location or office. Let's see. I'll just say office location. Okay. Well, we have, what's it, about 2 or 3 minutes. But before we leave this, what I would like for you to do to see if you've understood it is to obviously create the instructor class and some data, well, around that in the sense of populating the instructor. But one other thing that we'll have to do, how do we connect the child with the parent class? It's going to be, is it many to many?
It could be. If you have a student, grad student who's also a course instructor.
Okay, but going from the child to the parent, how many? So you cannot have a student who is multiple application users, right? So the issue is over here, how do we connect? What do we need? In previous cases, how did we connect, for example, a student with course registration? In this relationship or association, which is the parent and which is the child? Student with the courses they're registering for. Which would you consider as dominant and which is the secondary one? Yeah. Okay, student is the parent. Okay. Cody, do you understand this?
Yeah, I was working on getting a
Okay. Okay, I'll have Preston is going, but the last point that I need to make is this: that if you are going to address this issue, foreign key, we need to the student ID is in this case going to be referencing the application user. Okay, so this is the child connecting with the foreign. So we have to introduce this, which is what is it associating with? Public. It's connecting with the application user, and I can just say I need to use some name. Let's say application user. And how do I indicate that foreign key connection? Foreign key. And the foreign key is going to be, what's the foreign key? Pardon? Well, the foreign key, so remember the foreign key goes from the child to the parent. So in this, what's the child and what's the parent? The student is the child, application user is the parent, right? So we are going from the child to the parent, so the foreign key is student ID connecting to the parent. Okay, so how do you know that you understood this concept of setting up inheritance? So this is the base that you have to set up. You'll have to roll it back and roll it forward because we'll change the model. But this is just one piece of the inheritance. what's the other piece? It's the instructor, right? So what I want you to do to see if you've understood this is to set up the instructor. Okay. So set up the instructor class just as we did the student class, and then populate the instructors with some, let's say 3 instructors, and then migrate it over to the database and see what happens. So, so that if everything goes well, if you go into your database, you should be able to see user, this ASP.NET users should be populated. Right now, obviously, there's nothing in there because we have not connected it so far. And that should, in turn, connect with your student IDs. So which means that if you add 3 student IDs and 3 instructor IDs, which are referencing back here, the student IDs, let's say there are 3 application user IDs, 1 through 6. The students will be some, what will you expect to see for the student IDs and instructor IDs? Can you have 1, 2, 3 for students and 1, 2, 3 for instructors? The answer is you cannot, because you can have only one set of IDs and that ID cannot get repeated. Okay. So see if you can put together this conceptual understanding and see if you can apply it to practice. I need to stop, otherwise Preston cannot come up here to discuss. But try applying it to see if you understand this. And we'll bring in the concept of roles so that we can then bring in the authentication piece.
All right. So, like Nanda was mentioning, you're going to have to make a new Visual Studio account, and that's what you'll call the Spring 2017 MIS 452 group, whatever group number you are. Once you make that new account, it's going to take you to an account page like this. And you'll see it'll have My First Project under it, and that'll be the only project. What you're going to have to do is on this page, click on these 3 little dots and go to Users. And then, yeah, this one's set up differently, so I can't use this one.
You want to log in?
Yeah, I can log in as myself. Here, let me log in as myself so I can use mine as an example.
I don't know if it requires you to close all the windows.
It hopefully won't. If it does, I'll try it without doing that first. Alright. So it's going to bring you to an account page like this, and here's where you're going to click on the 3 dots and go to Users, and then it's going to show you all the users here, and you can add more users like on your team here, and you can add Nanda here, and then what we need to do is go to the security settings over here by the year. And these are all the different groups that you're going to have. All of your teammates should be under this valid users group. So what you need to do is go in here and change all of these permissions to allow, specifically the create new projects and create process. You don't have to do all of them, but it makes it easier just to do all of them and give everyone all the access. But this create new projects is the main privilege that they need. Just to be safe, you can do it under build administrators also, and you can do it under the service accounts. So just go in and make sure that you give all of these groups this create new projects permission, and then your teammates will be able to go in, create their projects. As you can see, we have my first project and then my project that's going to hold my code, and then my teammates will make their own projects under this account. And this is where Nanda can go in, see your whole account, and then click on everyone's individual projects to open their code in Visual Studio. And when you create the new project, it's going to prompt you to clone the repository on your local machine in Visual Studio. Just follow the steps. It's really simple. Once you clone that repository in Visual Studio, it's going to, so right here is where it tells you to clone it. Once you do, it will give you this Team Explorer, and you'll have this just like it is here. What you'll have to do is click Open under Solutions, open your in-class SRS solutions, and then go to Changes, write a commit, and then commit all. Then you'll follow through to the sync page, and there will be a new outgoing commit which you'll push. Do you have a question?
What if it doesn't allow you to commit it? Because I've ran into an issue where even if you write down a message in there, it won't allow you to commit it.
That may have been because you were working under someone else's project and you didn't have the correct permissions.
I was working under my SRS one. I was trying to do all that last night, so I don't know why they actually committed.
All right. If it doesn't allow you to commit, you may have build errors, and if the project can't build, it usually won't commit. So that may be it. Usually, if the project builds and everything works out, then you can commit it and get it up and launched. If not, you can let me know, and I'll try to help you out with that. Yeah.
I couldn't just push open and open a project. That actually was not called instant reconfig.
Yeah, sometimes it depends on where your project's at. So I save all of my Visual Studio projects to the local machine, like under the Visual Studio Projects folder. Sometimes if you save them in different places, you will have to copy them and paste them into the repo folder. That's the same thing. It just takes a little bit more steps to pull them out and copy them into this folder, and then they'll appear here automatically. Any other questions? I'm not sure. I think you can delete it from the repo and then commit your changes. So, you can publish the same project to multiple projects. Yeah, it's not a problem. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is very helpful. To just, I think they can get used to working with source control as well as sharing the source code. I think it takes a little bit of time, but maybe won't. I just feel there's so much value going forward.
Yeah, it is very valuable to do it and just put your code in a central place. Yeah. It makes building a team project a lot faster.
Yeah, and so there will be some growing pains, I think, with this. So some of this is good, I think, and I want to get into it so that going forward it becomes routine. So, but thank you.
You're welcome.
My Azure connection should be good now.
Okay, what was the problem?
With my connection string name, I have my mixed password in, and I realized